Ask the Doulas podcast. I am Alyssa Benacloss, co-owner of Gold Coast Doulas, and I am here with Kristin, my business partner today, and Janna Hibler. She's a naturopathic doctor and clinical nutritionist. Hello, Janna.
Hi, how's it going, guys?
Good. So Kristin and I met you at a little gathering of the minds at Grand Rapids Natural Health recently.
Yes.
So we kind of hit it off, and then you and I got coffee, and we hit it off even further and got to chatting forever. So we were like, let's just pause this and record our conversation. And today, I want to know a little bit more about what you do, but when we were talking, the two of us were talking quite a bit about postpartum depression, and I want to talk about, what happens leading up to that, even before you get pregnant, but then during the prenatal, while you're pregnant, what does that look like? What does depression and anxiety look like? How do we nip that in the bud?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really important for all of us mamas and future mamas to know that how we are before we get pregnant and give birth is a good indicator of how, our health might look like after we give birth. Things like you mentioned, such as anxiety or depression, they tend to get more severe after we give birth just because of the extreme stress and sleep deprivation that we are under having a newborn. I like to emphasize to my patients, this is nothing to feel bad about. It's just when you don't sleep, you don't release the same neurotransmitters and have the same brain chemistry with their certain levels of uppers and feel-good hormones. So it's kind of...
I'm obviously a big proponent of sleep.
Yes, right?
And, for babies and parents.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you tell a parent? Let's say I'm not even pregnant yet. I'm thinking about getting pregnant.
Sure.
How does a person even know if they have depression or anxiety? And then what do you do about it? Let's say that I'm kind of a depressed person, or I get anxious about things at work or with my friends or my family. What do you recommend? And then let's say I came to see you as a naturopathic doctor.
So again, I like to really emphasize that that you are normal, and this is a normal part of being a female. If we're talking evolutionary speaking, we were made to be out in nature, and so when we're put in the city, a lot of us live even half an hour within Grand Rapids downtown. There's a lot of lights, there's a lot of noises, there's a lot of things going on that cause an over response, and that can lead to anxiety and depression. So some feelings might be feeling nervous in certain situations, or some OCD tendencies, a lower mood display, and laughing less or getting less excited about certain things in life. These can be very mild, but if you look at them over the course of the day, if you have a lot of little things, they do add up. So when you walk into a naturopathic doctor's office, something I really love and take to heart is we have our medical concentration, but we also have a lot of education with psychology and knowing how the brain works. So I would ask you a bunch of questions, the normal medical questions you get, but in addition, we're going to ask about your sleep cycles, your exercise, your diet regimen, and all of these play a part into our mental health, because my end goal is for everybody to feel their best all the time. In order to find out how people are feeling, I like to run a series of either urinary or, having your blood sample taken. This can give us an indication of our brain chemistry, our hormone levels, our cortisol, in addition to the normal, checking sugar and, our CBC. I really like to hone in on these specialty tests because by checking our brain chemistry, I can find exactly what neurotransmitters might be high or low, and we can treat appropriately.
Okay, and so when you tell me my neurotransmitters, what does that mean? What are you looking at, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, definitely. So our neurotransmitters are the common ones we've all heard of are dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, epinephrine, even histamine. There's a whole slew of uppers and downers. And basically we take the brain chemistry analysis test so we can see, if some of them are off. And some people that have allergies, they tend to have high histamine levels. That's an upper. So when we have allergies, those people actually tend to have anxiety as well. And so we can actually nip the anxiety in the butt by treating the allergies and reducing histamine levels. So it's really a cool science that we're in.
And it's knowing that, like, like you mentioned, sleep, the cortisol and serotonin and melatonin, all those things you can actually check with blood in urine.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women have issues with their thyroid. Is that part of the testing, that you can check thyroid levels?
Absolutely. So I like to refer to it as our hormone triangle, where we have our thyroid as the king, our sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and then we have our cortisol. All three of those categories play a huge role in our quote-unquote hormone development and picture that we have. So we do a lot of intensive testing to find out where those levels are at.
And what would you do? Let's say I came in and my cortisol levels were sky high and you noticed something with my thyroid. What would you tell me to do?
So, depending on your lab results, the thyroid could be treated in two ways. One, sometimes we do give conventional medications such as Levo or Synthroid. And then another way to treat, though, depending on your levels, is with herbs. We can give a series of botanical herbs to actually bring your levels back to normal and certain nutrients. There's a number of cofactors that actually feed our thyroid hormone to turn from its inactive to active form, and without them, we will not function. So that's things like vitamin D and iron and vitamin C, very common nutrients that we take for granted but play a vital role in our thyroid health.
So how long do you test that out before you put them on a drug?
So typically I like to, give a patient 3 to 6 months to see if we can fix it with nutrients and herbs. Again, it comes back to what the patient wants. If a patient wants results this month, then we might take a more aggressive treatment plan. But if they're willing to do it completely naturally, then 3 to 6 months.
Okay, so let's say I get it under control. I'm pregnant.
Yes.
And I still notice now that I still have some anxiety or depression. What do you do during pregnancy?
Definitely. So I really like to encourage diet and exercise and sleep. Those are our biggest best friends, I guess, to really help out. Different lifestyle factors can have a huge effect on our mood and behavior. So let's start with maybe some foods. We could eat like a diet rich in dopamine, so we could do things like chocolate. I mean, who doesn't love chocolate?
Right.
But we all love it, but do we know, it's high in magnesium, it's high in zinc, and those are vital cofactors to run our brain chemistry. We can also have blueberries or nuts and seeds, which are high in vitamin B6 and 9 and all these B vitamins to help also with our mood. We could do some like grass-fed or fermented foods, which help with our gastrointestinal health, which again, I'm sure you guys have all heard of the gut being the second brain.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then sulfur-rich foods like onions and garlic that actually help with detox. So if we are having, some things get backed up, we can help get them out. So we really try to approach it from a multifactorial view, like hitting all points. How's our diet? How's our exercise? How's our sleep? How's our stress? And a lot of what I get into with patients too is, how's your relationship at home? Do you feel supported? Do you feel loved? Do you feel heard by your partner, by your business partners, your coworkers? Like, these are all part of our needs that, play a role in our mental health when we're pregnant and when we're not pregnant. So
I was going to say, those are things that should be carried over throughout, right?
Yeah.
Eating well, exercising, and getting enough sleep.
Totally. And pregnancy just kind of is that opportunity where we find, kind of our weaknesses in our body. And it's actually, I look at it as a great opportunity to increase our health for the rest of our life, and things we wouldn't know about it unless we were pregnant.
Oftentimes, I feel like that is the point in a woman's brain and body where we finally start to understand and care about what's happening to our body.
Mm-hmm, right.
And because we're growing another human,
right.
Then we're like, oh, I better start taking care of myself so that I can take care of this baby.
And I think that has a lot to do with what happens after we give birth, and why a lot of moms struggle. I mean, I want to say that loud on this cast right now, that mom life is hard. It is a struggle. And I know we all try to put on a face that we're doing well and, everything's perfect at home, but mom life is hard. And that's, maybe another podcast sometime, but that's a conversation I'd love to get started because it is hard. And to that extent, why we have a hard time after birth is a lot of the time, and I'm sure you guys see this all the time being in the house with moms, that the moms forget about themselves. They put all of their energy, all of their love into their baby. And I was guilty of it too. I mean, I have a 2-year-old and I definitely did it. I'm still guilty of it some days because we love that human so, so much. But I think it's really important for our mental health and as mothers to put that energy back into ourselves and remember that we really can't pour from an empty cup, and we have to be healthy and strong ourselves in order to make strong and healthy babies.
So what do you recommend to a mom who's suffering from depression? You know, like maybe they had a beautiful pregnancy, easy labor and delivery, and then they're like, oh my God, this is way harder than I thought.
Right.
And then sink into a depression that they've never experienced before. How do you get them out of that?
Yeah. And so many moms do. I want to say there's so many out there that come in and they're like, not even my husband knows how sad I am. Not even my best friend knows how sad I am. And that's where I really encourage everyone to just start reaching out. I don't want you to be ashamed. I don't want you to feel guilty because it doesn't mean you're a bad mom. You're an excellent mom because you care so much. And asking for that help and taking that first step, that making people aware that this is something I do need help with, and receiving that love. From a medical standpoint too, we'll go in and I'll help adjust hormones and your brain chemistry with either herbs or conventional treatments or nutrient levels to help your body. But I think so much of it also comes from a mental and emotional spot of feeling supported and loved by your people around you.
So is naturopathic medicine in general more of a functional approach versus the medical approach, or kind of a combination?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And functional medicine is so great. That is the bridge between conventional medicine and natural medicine because we all agree on it. You know, we see a lab level, and it's important to attend to it when it's on its lower level. Traditionally minded thinking, we only would treat something like, say, vitamin D. We would only treat it if it was set low because that's the level that can cause rickets and, true mobility issues. But what about everybody that has, low normal, that they're in that functional funky range? That's at a stage that can cause depression, you can get autoimmune diseases. And so as a naturopathic doctor, I really work on treating it then and now so we can prevent from getting those diseases because they may not pop up in 5 or even 10 years, but they will happen if they're not treated too.
Even in pregnancy, there's evidence that preeclampsia with the lack of vitamin D, that can be a factor in developing preeclampsia. So.
Exactly. And that's how it can be that simple sometimes where moms come in and, hey, they just want to run a nutrient panel just to find out what are their baseline nutrients. And then that way, when breastfeeding comes into play, especially for extended breastfeeding, I've been breastfeeding for 2.5 years, so that's something I've been keeping a constant eye on, or what are my nutrient levels? Because, we don't want to cause other problems from just being depleted. Yeah. So that's a great point.
Depleted is a good word to describe mothers postpartum, I think. Most of us at some point just feel depleted, whether it's mentally, physically, whether it's
both.
Just breastfeeding, like that alone can make you feel depleted. Like this baby's literally sucking the life out of me.
Because you're giving everything.
Right.
I tandem nurse, so I really felt depleted when I was nursing.
It's like this weird tug of war between I love doing this and I hate doing this so much. I remember I was like so over it when I was done, and then a month later I missed it. I was like, oh my God, I'm not breastfeeding anymore. But I was so ready. Like,
great to have your body.
Those pump accessories in the trash and celebrated. But it's just a weird.
It is. And that's every mom is different. And so we like to celebrate moms at each level, whether they want to breastfeed for 3 months or 6 months or a year, we all have our breaking point, and we want us to prevent us from getting to that point.
Right.
So mama matters too.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And if people want to find you to come visit you, or just to ask you a question, or follow you on Instagram, where do they find you?
Absolutely. So I'm currently accepting patients at Grand Rapids Natural Health. And I'm also on social media, which you can reach out anytime as Holistic Mommy and Me Doc. My name is Janna Hibler. That's also a searchable way. And feel free to message me anytime. I like to get to know my mamas. Since I've just moved from Vermont, I'm looking to build up my network of mamas because we are a tribe and we all need to stick with each other. So whether it's personally or professionally, I do want to link up with you. So thank
Excellent.
you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Janna. We appreciate it.
As always, you can find our podcast, Ask the Doulas, on SoundCloud and iTunes. You can reach us at info@goldcoastdoulas.com and find us on the web, goldcoastdoulas.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, these moments are golden.